Colorado's giving away millions of dollars in a vaccine sweepstakes, and the governor is super jacked up about it.
Not one, not two, not three.
Colorado stocked sporting events, concerts with all these vaccine doses, you know, for the youths. But is anyone taking them there? Legislators looking to make it easier for sex offenders to leave prison are now hearing it from survivors.
We're going to give them another shot. Nobody gave me another shot.
1 year since George Floyd's murder. Black Coloradans tell us what has changed and what hasn't. Next. So much about COVID has been about understanding the odds. The odds of getting sick. The odds of getting really sick. The odds of passing it to somebody else. The odds of having an issue from a vaccine versus the virus. Now, the odds of winning $1 million for getting the shot. Oh, sweet $1 million. Colorado's going to go from persuading people to get vaccinated through logic and reason to just straight cash. 5 $1 million drawings. Our Marshall Zellinger looks at how this is going to work and how the state can legally exclude people from winning based on their medical choice.
An oversized check and an amped-up speaker. No, this is not an infomercial.
That's right, you could win $1 million.
As of right now, the odds of you winning the first drawing of what the governor is calling Colorado Comeback Cash, 1 in 2,838,231. That's the number of Coloradans 18 and older who have at least one dose of a COVID vaccine. To be eligible to win one of the 5 $1 million drawings, you have to be alive, a Colorado resident, 18 or older, and have at least one vaccine dose.
We have seen this kind of drawing work in states like Ohio, where they saw a surge in interest.
Ohio announced 5 $1 million prizes on May 13th. Look at that state's chart for vaccine doses since the announcement. Look at where Colorado stands with doses administered by day, a steady decline since early April. The governor is using $5 million in federal CARES Act money to simply give away in exchange for a shot.
We feel this complements some of the advertising and outreach that we're doing and will generate even more interest in the vaccine than if we simply had spent this money on television commercials.
So how does the state know you got vaccinated or not? There's a database called the Colorado Immunization Information System that contains data on anyone who has received a vaccination by a Colorado provider.
And along with those doses comes demographic information for the patient. So things like your address and your phone number, and even if your email address, if you give it to the healthcare provider.
The drawing will occur by assigning random numbers to each person over 18 who is in the database. And we will do a drawing, all random and with a lot of security in place, to generate winning numbers.
So if you choose not to get a vaccine for whatever reason, I asked how you can be excluded from winning. I didn't get an answer to that, but I did learn you don't have to take the money if you win.
Anyone will be permitted to decline the opportunity to be eligible to win the prize.
I spoke with an attorney from a law firm that specializes in contests and sweepstakes and lotteries, and I'm told this sounds like it's on the up and up because of how it's structured. You can restrict a certain population based on the criteria. The drawings, Kyle, will be held every Friday in June and then July 7th. So as people get vaccinated, they'll be eligible along with anyone else who has had their shot. So those odds that I mentioned will actually get worse as more people get vaccinated.
Now, the governor said, perhaps quite rightly, this is a better use of the money than putting it into television ads about vaccination. Little did he know that we at Next like to make TV commercials for free if people are interested in that kind of thing. But, Marshall, I noticed how the governor went in like 1 week from seeming very lukewarm to this sweepstakes contest, kind of shrugging off other states doing it, to now being really, really juiced up about the idea.
I've talked with people who work within the governor's office that say, I know it's not an original idea, but clearly it works somewhere else. And the second he got to that microphone, it shocked. I don't go very often in person lately, but I went in person to this one, and it shocked the people there that he was just, boom, on point as though it was an infomercial. One quick thing, if you're 12 to 17 and you're getting a vaccination, there's 117,000 of you already. There will be an opportunity for you to get a scholarship, perhaps, that hasn't been finalized just yet.
Gotcha. A scholarship. And a sham wow, as opposed to the $1 million and 2 sham wows. All right, thank you, Marshall. So there are 2.5 million people in Colorado who have completed the vaccine process. They're now eligible for the $1 million and the ShamWow. That is 42.6% of the state's population. Our graphics person, when she was crunching the numbers yesterday, she said she entered a number correctly. That's the reason why today's percentage is smaller than yesterday's. Wanted to be totally upfront if you saw the number go down. Survivors of sexual assault and their advocates in our state are understandably unhappy about what we reported here last night, that there is a bill flying under the radar at the state capitol that would free some convicted sex offenders before they get their required treatment. It's because there is a backlog of inmates waiting for the treatment. The delay is not their fault. So this bill was supposed to be debated today, but that has been put on hold. Among the number of survivors who reached out to us about this is Kimberly Corbett, an outspoken advocate in northern Colorado. She says releasing these sex offenders before they get their treatment re-victimizes survivors and may also prevent people from coming forward to report sexual assault.
What good does it serve victims to come forward, report, go through the entire criminal justice system just to maybe possibly get a conviction and for them to maybe possibly serve a single day in prison, and then to have legislators say, it's probably fine, we can leave this up to somebody else. This man held me hostage in my college bed, in my bedroom after he had broken in, and he told me that he's going to come back for me. He'd find me again. And this just feels like legislators are giving him the option to do so.
Corbett says if the issue here is funding to alleviate the treatment backlog, then she says that is what the state legislature should focus on, as opposed to releasing offenders early and hoping for the best. Today marks 1 year since George Floyd was murdered by a Minneapolis police officer, leading to the largest civil rights demonstrations America has seen in decades. Our Katie Eastman and photojournalist Ann Herbst have been listening to Black Coloradans share what they have seen and felt over the last year. Tonight, we hear from two business owners in Fort Collins.
I do remember when I saw the George Floyd video. I want to tell you that I was surprised, but I wasn't. The thing that surprised me is that the officers were held accountable. That's what surprised me. I'm Joe Buckner. Yeah, this is the boxing fitness studio that I own in Fort Collins, Colorado.
You see clearly, okay, something's been happening. This is the pinnacle and the climax of that. My name is Saja Butler, and I own Urban Monk Studios here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm also a professional musician. You're only one step away. Oh man, people have been talking, being vulnerable. The trust, the openness is what I love from my white friends and allies.
To say that my life has changed, not really, but it has allowed for more open dialogue around race and class and some of the things that maybe we didn't talk about before in mixed company. Sometimes I feel maybe just empathy is the answer.
We need to say the things that we've experienced every day in our lives so that there is ground and background for why the systemic racism still continues to this day.
As we look back on what we have learned in the year following George Floyd's murder, we also must be asking how we have acted upon the knowledge that we've gained. George Floyd died after being held in what's called a prolonged prone restraint. This is a law enforcement technique that police themselves know is unnecessarily dangerous because law enforcement have been warning their fellow officers about it for 25 years now. 9 Wants to Know investigative reporter Chris Vanderveen has tracked down 119 of these prone restraint deaths in recent years. George Floyd is simply the best known name. The name is also on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which passed the U.S. House. It is a police reform bill that does not reform the use of prolonged prone restraint, the hold that led to George Floyd's death. The danger is not a new revelation, though perhaps some of us and some law enforcement officers and some lawmakers are just now having this particular danger brought to our attention. Denver and Minneapolis are using Chris's investigation to better train their officers. Law enforcement and lawmakers everywhere in America can now fairly be called upon to answer for how they have acted upon the knowledge that they have gained in the year since George Floyd's murder. The logic of getting vaccinated before a night out at Red Rocks is really pretty smart.
We actually had one guy say, I know I'm not going to feel that great in the morning after this show anyway.
Can't argue with that. We want to know if vaccines at concerts and sporting events are a gimmick that people are ignoring, or if those shots are actually being used. And RTD essentially paid a $29 million security deposit in case the Union Station revamp didn't work. It's great, but they can't seem to get their money back. Next. It is pretty wild to think about how quickly we went from people frantically searching for vaccines to now literally paying people to get them. You can get a shot all over town if you want it. Grab one between innings at Coors Field, before a show at Red Rocks, while you're at Ball Arena watching NBA MVP Nikola Jokic play. Our Steve Steger's curious whether people, especially the youngins, are actually out getting vaccines in these places.
Who needs $1 million when you can get a concessions voucher to do a little damage at Red Rocks?
It's enough to get you close to a beer. It's $5, so it's not nothing, but
you're like a third of the way there, right?
Yeah, or half a hot dog.
Ryan Kitts speaks for America's Best Concert Venue, where for 6 shows so far this year, they've offered people the J&J vaccine.
Initially, we had started with 100 doses and then realized that we were doing well if we were getting between 20 and 30 people.
A 20 to 30% success rate. In the mountains, it was a little better. Summit County Public Health held an event at A Basin. They brought 200 J&J vaccines and administered 111. They're going to go the concert route this summer. There's even one this weekend in Frisco called Jams and Jabs. Get a vaccine, they'll give you beer tokens.
If we're even getting one person a night, it's probably worth it.
Kitts says people at Red Rocks have gotten the shot for a host of different reasons, including peer pressure.
When the artist says this is important for our industry and for your fellow fans, that's one thing. But when your friends are saying, look, you might as well, it's right here, why not? That's where we're starting to see some success rates.
A rock show may seem an odd place to boost public health.
We actually had one guy say, I know that I'm not going to feel that great in the morning after this show anyway. But now I'm not going to know whether it's because of the vaccine or the beers.
Then again, maybe it's a great idea.
I really think that, slowly but surely, little efforts like this are going to make a difference.
So the city wasn't able to give us numbers on Avs and Nuggets playoff games. We do know that UC Health gave out about 15 to 20 shots at each Rockies game that they went to and set up a clinic there. They went to about 3 of them, and 20 shots at an event at Cerveceria, Colorado. They went the brewery route. They consider this a success. They're likely going to extend this at Red Rocks because it's been what they view as successful through the rest of the summer. They were kind of waiting it out to see.
As the governor would say, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 15 to 20 shots per concert. Steve, thank you.
15. Yeah.
One of the things he always said was, I'm not trying to prolong life through exercise.
He got plenty of years out of the body that he put through the paces alongside thousands of Coloradans over the decades. Famous people and not so much.
I have a zest for living, and I want other people to have that.
Remembering a man who loved sweating outdoors long before it was Colorado cool. Next.
That's right. You could win $1 million, and you might already be entered. Anybody who got the vaccine in Colorado or who gets the vaccine will be an automatic participant in not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 drawings for $1 million, a total of $5 million. We are doing a drawing to make sure it goes right to you.
And there's nothing worse than just waiting and waiting to get your deposit back, especially when it's $29 million. Federal government is sitting on 29 mil that belongs to RTD. I'm not sure if you have met RTD, but they could for sure use the cash. The money is a deposit that RTD paid when the feds loaned them the money to redevelop Union Station. You know, they held on to that cash in case the project went sideways. It did not go sideways. It went straight up. The place is wonderful, and RTD is straight up owed that deposit back. The feds have been slow walking it, so the majority of Colorado's Democrats in Congress, along with Republican Ken Buck, have now introduced a bill to force the federal government to repay the money. We'll let you know if 29 mil shows up in RTD's bank account. Aging ferociously was the motto of a man who convinced generations of Coloradans, famous and not so famous, to get out and exercise. John Gillingham, exercise guru to the Broncos, at least one Colorado governor, and plenty of everyday Coloradans who just wanted to sweat. The man aged ferociously till the age of 92. He passed away during the pandemic, and his friends are just now gathering to celebrate his life. Here's Byron Reed.
And slightly raining. And
the friendship and bond between these two friends has stood the test of time for decades.
I think 25 years, 30.
Fred Ward and R.J. Booth have been friends since the 90s, and both share a connection with a name on a bench in Washington Park.
This bench is a memorial bench of our good friend, John Gillingham.
These two friends met participating in an outdoor exercise group.
Serious fun. That's what he called the workouts.
Started by fitness expert John Gillingham.
He's really the glue that keeps us all together.
Originally from England, Gillingham moved to Denver in the 1960s as part of a fitness initiative for the downtown YMCA. It was the start of his long career devoted to exercise.
He designed the original workout stations that went all the way around Washington Park. He helped to do sports conditioning with the Broncos.
Warm up with us. Let's go.
For a couple of years, he had the TV show here in Colorado. He did run with the torch with the Olympics that were in Salt Lake.
At age 90, John retired in 2018 and celebrated with a final workout on his birthday. 2 years later, John Gillingham passed away.
He had some breathing problems and went to the hospital, and they discovered a tumor.
This weekend, John's family and friends are planning a long-awaited gathering to celebrate a life of a man who brought people together.
I'll probably have several handkerchiefs on me.
For next,
I think he'd be really happy.
I'm Byron Reed.
Good beer needs good ingredients. Sometimes things go very wrong very early in the process, like before the ingredients even make it to the brewery. That is the most Colorado thing we saw today. Plus your feedback next. Irrigation equipment gone awry. It's the most Colorado thing we saw today. One of those center pivot, one of those mechanical irrigation arms went wonky in the fields at Root Shoot Malting the other day, drove right past its programmed stop and into a pond. Folks at the barley farm near Loveland got out the canoe, semi-truck, and a winch to pull it out. The dog is simply supervising the process, but that's also quite Colorado. Jenny says personally she liked the enthusiasm from the governor. She wrote he's doing his best to sell the new program and get people vaccinated. A whole bunch of you wrote in saying that you left Colorado to get your shots and now you want in on that sweet cash. I will attempt to get you an answer of whether there's any way for you to be involved in the drawing. And John says, as you end the shows at home this week, maybe sell off the logs to help some people. We've got a great idea. I'll tell you about it next time.